and welcome. We are Santiago Avila, Santiago Villazon, and Mario Alejandro Sanchez Nájera from Clean Our Oceans, also known as COO. COO is aimed at making an informative video that will show and teach people about the current problems of the environment directly related to oil spills and global warming. More specifically, the effects of crude oil in our ecosystems, affecting marine wildlife, agriculture, and human lives. COO is highly based on facts, but is also open to opinion, due to the fact that anything can be learned and can be used as a resource. Using this logic, we will also try to learn anything we can from the process of the video.
During this podcast, we will ask a set of special guests we have invited and will ask for their opinion based on the themes stated above. From this, we will formulate a conclusion and will check for any bias in their arguments or explanations, from top to bottom. Because of the fear of bias, we have chosen experts from different places and fields of work to assure that we get a good mix of people. We believe this will fix that problem due to the fact that everyone we have chosen comes from very different backgrounds and have very different forms of thinking, some being a bit more conservative than others. We have especially taken into account the different universities that our interviewees have gone to, since all universities have a different type of bias and still that bias into its students.
Besides just the topic of the environment, we will also interview two specialists on the topic of cinematography and video making so that they can help us achieve the end goal of our project, being to create an impactful and informative video to show people what is going on currently with global warming and the enormous messes that humankind has caused in the ocean when it comes to oil spills. It will also hopefully move the audience enough so that they can help out even if it's in small gestures and actions. We are making this video like this because nowadays most videos and informative guides are boring and are always much too blunt when it comes to the point of the video, making the video itself lose power, which is why today we are going to make this podcast much more dynamic and down to the point, with a slightly relaxed feel.
Welcome. Would you like to tell us your name and what are your credentials upon this topic? And when I say credentials, I mean what universities you've gone to and any master's degree, PhD, etc.
My name is Salvador Avila Cobo. I have a PhD in Innovation and Regional Development from Stanford University. I have another master's in social psychology, also from Stanford. I have yet another master's in learning design and technology from the same university, and also a master's in biotechnology and medical devices, also from Stanford University in California.
Salvador, for question 1, how do you make people more aware of crude oil spills, the effects of those oil spills, and the consequences they are gonna have?
I think that the best way to educate people about oil spills and pollution in general is to make them aware of the consequences and direct impacts they have in their daily lives. I do think that we have a lack of proper information, so people are not even aware of many of the things they suffer, for example, as a consequence of continuing to use plastic or styrofoam. They just go to the supermarket and buy it, and they don't care much. And all of that, not only fuel for vehicles, are producing a lot of pollution in the oceans. Again, in two forms: the oil spills, because at the end of the day they have to transport the oil to different countries, and so there is a risk for spills, and also as direct pollutants of those plastic bags and styrofoam, etc., in the ocean. All of those are made of oil too, so people need to be aware that it's not only the comfort of being able to buy plastic bags at the supermarket or get them for free, but it's just the fact that they need to acknowledge and be sensitive and suffer the consequences of just asking for plastic bags.
For our next guest, we have Mr. Tegel, who has a bachelor's degree in environmental management coming from Dodoma University in Tanzania. Mr. Tegel, how are you today?
Hi, Mario. Thank you for having me.
Now, taking your opinion that you've mentioned before, do you believe schools in general, not only just in Tanzania, are properly educating and training students on the different aspects of global warming and climate change?
Well, Mario, as you know, Tanzania is a third world country, and education might not be great there, but they still put a big effort into making the kids aware of how climate change is affecting our planet. I do believe they're doing a good job, but I think it should be emphasized more in the education. They might speak of it in PSAT or in tutor time, but the school doesn't really put an active effort to stop global warming.
Today I have another special guest, and Conti. Welcome, man. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, thank you.
And remind us, where did you study?
A school in Montpellier.
Okay.
Montpellier University.
Opinion, are schools properly educating children and or young adults on the different aspects of global warming and climate change?
I don't think that schools do enough for global warming because it's not part. For example, I am an English teacher, but I wasn't told to teach my students about global warming. Mm-hmm. Same in French tuition. So I think they could do more.
Mm-hmm. And do they not do any other projects or any? Do they not have any other days where it's dedicated to like global warming or?
Yes, they have days when in primary school, I think, when they go, for example, planting. They go in the wild to observe and plant things, but they do not do it in a secondary school.
Okay, so as they get older, they start to sort of forget those topics of global warming and.
I think French education assumes that the parents are going to teach that to their children. Yes, not so much school.
Yeah, so more of a thing that your parents are going to pass on to you, and then you should pass on to your children.
And then you can learn from television, from every single meme. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and
so Isabella, in your experience, what are the best effects or images or displays can you use to capture the audience's attention in the first seconds of a video?
So in my experience, really the best way to capture an audience's attention in the first 10 seconds is by pulling them in on an emotional level, stimulating some sort of response that will keep them interested in the subject of the video. There are certain different, techniques you could use, either with a really bold introduction as to the subject, or a very either touching or scary or just a very emotive first scene in a video will capture an audience instantly. A third way you can do this is also by connecting to your audience through audio, either by introducing your video with a very powerful song or a well-composed soundtrack will also pull in the audience.
We are now with Mr. Kosek, who has a major in computer science and a minor in cinematography from AGH Institute of Technology located in Poland. Mr. Kosek, how are you today?
Oh, very well. Thank you for having me.
Should we insert or not insert graphic or slightly graphic videos and photos on the video?
This may be controversial, and most platforms nowadays regulate highly graphic content. So this could work against the video in order that certain graphic aspects may cause the algorithm of the platform you're launching
Mr. Max Lawrence Hendricks from Carl Benz Engineering School. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me here.
Which platform should we use to launch our video, and which techniques can we apply to keep it as a trend?
It really depends on your content. A good way to start is with YouTube because it covers all the sections. If you have more to do with politics, Facebook is also a good option, but YouTube is generally a great start. If you want to keep it as a trend, you could definitely use Instagram to stand behind the scenes so that your users and followers are getting notified and see wait, there's a new video going on.
Well, many people would determine government intervention really good. The question I have for you is, do you think government intervention would be good in the problem of solving global warming and climate change, since some government have self-interests and self-views? Or would you think it'd be better separated from the government?
I think that many of these questions are too general. They are not specific enough. I don't think we can judge the participation or the convenience or the advantage of having all governments intervene just like that. There are some, just as I said before, regarding different regions and how their value system is and how they respond to more conservative or progressive values. I think it's exactly the same with governments. There are some liberal governments which really want to help the cause and want to solve as much as possible the problem of global warming, whereas other governments, more conservative ones, try to just leave it to the private sector, and whatever is done is good. I think that we are reaching a point where some institutional or governmental intervention is called for. But again, I cannot generalize because some governments are true believers in the cause and some others aren't. So the worst thing that the world can have right now is having governments just, simulate that they are helping, that they are attacking global warming, and maybe they don't do it for real.
Surrounded by experts who have exercised their degrees for years now, we have developed a clear idea of what information should we include, how should the final product turn out, as well as professionals' opinions. All of their knowledge is extremely valuable and useful for us, having a similar range of opinions. They have also avoided the use of extremely technical language. This for adapting to all types of audiences, from teenagers to adults, that could hear our podcasts. From this, we were able to see that the range of views and options between the SDG experts wasn't as different as we thought it would be, agreeing in the need to help the environment.
When it comes to the professionals in the technical area, they suggested similar ideas but different approaches when it comes to filters, images, and impact. Having professionals explain and give out their opinion, we believe the information was more than reliable. Said experts have been exercising their degrees for years, carrying out projects and working with different organizations. It has lots of information to work with that we can trust and not hit a dead end. This by consequence could have a certain amount of bias since they're giving out their opinions. For instance, Mr. Teigel has worked with Greenpeace, so he developed a bias for proposing solutions and wanting more projects and investment, while others have done labor in their home countries. However, this bias has been useful and cannot be discarded, considering it is pretty objective and backed up by logic, facts, and data.
Out of all the experts, we couldn't really find any that committed any fallacies. However, in the aspect of omission of information, either they didn't know or they didn't want to say, but we did have two experts who did ignore some facts and override it with their opinion. This, as stated before, is also considering the fact that many of the experts don't have the exact facts, and the situation, which is possible, is where they may have not recently touched one of the topics, leaving some of their information or knowledge a bit out of date. But when it came to completely ignoring facts, we had no specialists who did that. While we did disagree on some topics, we didn't ultimately disagree with them. We found some common ground with them every now and then. However, when it came to the super important and crucial points of view, we did end up agreeing with the experts, concluding that these problems are huge and should be dealt with as soon and as effectively as possible. Because of this, we can conclude that climate change, while not a top priority for everyone, should be, and must be dealt with to save ourselves and the planet on which we reside on.